Hi, my name is Elizabeth Catt, and I'm excited to be your student's chemistry teacher for Chemistry 1 this year. I'm going to take a little bit of time to tell you about our class, our grading policies, where you can find things in Canvas, as well as some tips for student success this year. Our class in Chemistry 1 is an inquiry-based class. We are student-centered, which means we are doing science every day. Students are involved in our learning process. And we will be looking at chemistry on 3 different levels. Macroscopic scale, which is where students interact with the matter and the material. The particulate scale, where we draw pictures and explain about the pieces and parts we can't see, and then symbolic representations. Those are things like chemical formulas, mathematical representations, and graphs. All 3 of these levels will go together to give our students a full understanding of each of our topics and our objectives throughout the year. In our class, semester grades will be consisting of 90% summative assessments, which will include quizzes and tests, and 10% will be from formative. That's going to be things like homework, classwork, and labs. Our summative assessments, our quizzes and tests, will be graded using a holistic mastery rubric. What this means is instead of us looking at each individual question as a set number of points, teachers are going to be assessing students' full understanding on a topic, and we're going to be looking at the whole piece. So for example, if I'm looking at a quiz on electrons like students just took recently, I'm going to go ahead and mark up their assessment. I'm going to look at the whole thing and assess what their level of understanding is before I place a score on that. This is going to give us as chemistry teachers more leeway to give students credit for what they know and understand instead of getting caught up on the little things that might be missing. We're looking to see, have they mastered that content? Are they beyond mastery? Are they still getting there? And we're going to use that process to help our students in the long run to build their understanding and to also be self-advocates throughout our learning process. Those scores will show up as a letter grade, as A, A-, B, C, D, and F, as you can see here, and then those will be entered as percentages, reflective as what you can see on here. Quiz scores will go into PowerSchool out of 10 points. So for example, if a student gets a B on a quiz, it'll go in as 8.5. Test scores will go in out of 100, so you would get that full percentage on that. Formative work, like homework, will be checked for completion, most likely. There will be some things like bigger labs that students will turn in that will be scored. But for homework, it'll receive 2 points if it's done fully and on time. If it is not done or submitted, it will receive 0, and if it's late or incomplete, it would be 1 point. We'll have lots and lots of homework or formative scores throughout the semester, so if a student misses one or is late here or there and it's not a habitual thing, it won't really cause a major issue in their overall grade. In chemistry, we will offer reassessments for unit tests, and there will be a reassessment window after tests have been graded and returned. That's usually about a 2-week window, and that will always be communicated to students. In order to qualify for these reassessments, students have to provide an authentic attempt on their original test that demonstrates their mastery of that. They can't turn it in blank or come unprepared. They have to make sure that they have done their practice, they've completed their homework, and they've done the work that's been asked of them for that unit. They also have to show that they are willing to do something to be prepared to do better on that reassessment. Some sort of relearning task. More information on what that might look like will come as we get ready for the potential for reassessments. Here I have a nice little screenshot of what our Canvas page looks like. This will be your home page. It's set up as most Canvas pages are, where we have a link to our learning modules. This is where students will definitely want to go to check out where our course material will be. There's also a link to class resources. These will be some things that students might need every day if maybe they're not inside of our course module, and then also some information on how you can contact me. Here we've got a look at what our Canvas page, once we get to the learning modules, will actually look like. The way that I like to have my module set up is the very first module will always contain agendas for each of the units. I put the most recent one always on top. That will link to my Google Doc that I keep live, and as I update those changes, they are made there, and students can see kind of what's upcoming. Beneath that will be our most recent content module. That will include what unit we're on, what objective, It will include specifically what the learning objective is, and then anything that students need will be in that module in order with dates as well. This is going to include notes, assignments, keys for those things, labs, demo videos, anything that students are going to need, they're going to find in those content modules. In addition to those being labeled with what the objective is, we also like to keep dates on the tops of those so students can reflect back and look if they miss class at any point. It's easier for them to find what they need. A few little tips for students being successful in chemistry this year. Biggest thing I can ask is that students are actively engaged as learners in our class time every day. We like to get as much as we can done together in class so that students don't have to do the heavy lifting when they're out on their own. That's really more just for practice. We do a lot of group work in terms of lab and completion of group assignments and group think. The more that you can be involved in that process and engage with our content and our work, the easier it's going to be for students throughout the year. Staying on top of your work, be it classwork or assignments or extra practice, is going to be really important, as well as making sure students are asking questions when they have them. There's always going to be time in class to ask questions. If things come up and they're unable to be answered in class, students can see me during SRT. They can message me if it's a quick question that it can be answered easily. Canvas messaging is a great way to do that. And as students get into our process and our rhythm, they'll see how all of those things connect together. If there's a time where students make some mistakes or they need some additional support in order to master topics, making sure that they reach out for that, as well as engage in any of the reassessment opportunities that they might be interested in. And as always, I'm always here as a resource. The more that they can communicate with me, with where they're at, what they need, how I can help, the more I can help students reach their learning goals. The best way to reach me is via email. You can see my email address and my phone extension here. At this point, I really would encourage you to ask your student if they are the one communicating with any questions. It's great for students to be self-advocates at this point as they're reaching this, sophomore, junior, senior year of taking chemistry. If ever you need to reach me, please don't hesitate. I do have 2 little boys at home, and when I'm outside of school, it's important to me to save my time for my family, so I'm only going to be responding to messages during school hours, and I do my very best to respond within 24 hours unless it's over the weekend. I appreciate your time taking to watch my video today. I hope that we have a great year with your student in chemistry. We've already been off to a wonderful start, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Please reach out if you have any questions.